Welcome to Salon Artificum, being held by Lions Gate in Lionsdale.
We have 24 presenters, 6 classes,
2 Bardic presentations, and then an open free-for-all Bardic for those who want to have fun.
and we're all just here to geek out. It'll be great.
Hey everybody, it's Nadezhda, and this is Máel Brigte. I've asked Máel Brigte to tell us a little bit about what she has brought today.
So over here we've got lots of pieces of clothing, such as your partlets, your breeches, your usual things, but also we go from head to toe with some fake hair pieces that are based off of extant examples, such as hand-dyed toe and linen strips stuffed with wool. And over here, apparently I have some things for hair that I like to do, such as a game ball stuffed with horsehair and some brushes, one made with horsehair and one made with feathers, as well as a couple of handmade quills, so that way I can do a bunch of my calligraphy and Scrabble work.
Excellent. So, you have a thing with hair. Normally, you wear some of it. Do you have a favorite hairpiece that you wear with it?
Actually, yes. As you can see, I have fairly fine hair and I don't have a lot of it. So this one, I cheated and put a little bit of elastic on it. And I just do that. And then I can actually get a veil or a cap to stay on my head.
Excellent. Yeah, I do a fake hair thing with veils to help keep my veils in place, so I really get the challenge that way.
I'm really missing it today because it keeps falling off my head without it.
I also see you've been doing some knitting. Got any favorite projects on that, or a dream piece you're working on?
Well, I went a little crazy and made replica stockings of the Eleanor de Toledo stockings out of this thick of thread.
What size needle are you using for those?
00 needles. And that comes out to 12 stitches per inch. And 2 stockings, all the way up to the knee. I love this person and their elevation.
Excellent.
So, and actually I went out and hand dyed it with logwood on the silk yarn. But when I'm not going a little crazy, I knit things in a bit of a coarser gauge, like the pouches over here, which would have been knit at this smaller gauge. But these are more of like fingering or DK weight, and those are also replica patterns.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. Hey. All right. Hey, everybody. It's Nadezhda again. This time I'm introducing you to Lishinia Aurelia, who has brought out so many different things that we're going to get a spin a wheel to figure out what we talk about, but we'll start with Lishinia's description of her stuff.
Hello. So I researched 10th century Byzantium. My persona is Byzantine, and so over the years I've just been researching different aspects of Byzantine life and culture. My true passion is Byzantine warfare, like Greek fire and grenades, but of course you have to do some of the practical stuff as well, like clothing and stamping and purling, so a little bit of everything.
Excellent. I'm going to spin the wheel, see what we get to talk about. I love this.
Yeah.
The pechenegs! The pechenegs!
They are my favorite. If I had learned about the pechenegs before I decided to be Byzantine, I would have gone pecheneg. They were a Turkish tribe in my period, so 10th, 11th century, and they controlled the Byzantines' access to their oil reserves, which they used for everything. So the Byzantines bribed them heavily. The Pecheneg were basically mercenaries. The Byzantines would bribe them to attack their enemies, they would bribe them for access to their own cities, they would bribe them to invade Bulgaria and Rus, and they were spectacular. They were nomadic, so you sometimes had to search them out, and their special interest was stealing the boats of the Kievan princes.
I was going to say, we'd have been at war.
Yeah. Yeah, every year they would steal the Kievan princes' boats.
This is absolutely a fabulous display, and I'm looking forward to coming back and asking you more questions.
Thanks, yeah.
I'm making another call.
Yeah, I'm making a loros, which is like the big wraps that the emperors wore. If I can find it in here.
The rest of the loros
Yeah, so I'm making mine in pieces, which they wouldn't have done. I don't know where it is. but I wanted to be able to wear it separately because it's going to be very heavy, and I don't think it's going to end up weighing about 15 pounds.
Oh,
and
goodness.
I think if it was that heavy all the time, I just wouldn't wear it, so I'm going to do it separate.
You have so many things in here, finding the right thing will be a challenge.
It's a little bit tricky. But yeah, so right now I'm working on the collar part of it. That's the front panel part of it. So slow progress.
It's the thing, the pearls. It takes a while.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
No problem, anytime.
All right, friends, we are back. Nirgui behind the camera here with Marie bint Yussuf at her beautiful stall set up in the hall. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on here?
Okay, this is my personal collection of vintage clothing from the 20th century from Southwest Asia and Central Asia. Each one of these pieces of clothing has an example of medieval construction techniques or embellishment techniques that were preserved until the 20th century. I can show you one, for instance, here. It looks very plain, but it shows the typical square construction from the medieval era. This would be from sometime in the mid-1900s. We also have several different examples of embroidery here that were used to decorate different types of clothing, and several machine-made examples. This is a machine-embroidered design, but it is done in a way to imitate the single and double running stitch patterns that were popular during the Mamluk era. I also have clothing that exemplifies different types of fabrics that may have been used at the time. This one may not photograph well, but it is a very even woven cotton that makes it very easy to do cross-stitch and counted stitch work on. This is no longer manufactured, alas. And the other example I have of medieval fabric or medieval style fabric is this lovely garment. The green stripes are made of silk, the background ivory is cotton. However, when you flip it over, you will see that it has been very carefully woven to have as much as possible of the silk on the outside so that it complies with Islamic codes for men's wear. Do you have any questions?
So the focus of your studies,
Yes.
can you tell me more about that?
Well, normally I got into my studies through the area of embroidery. What first started my journey were the two embroidered dresses I display here. This one, which was custom made for me when I was in my mid-teens, and this one, which was custom made for my mother in the same year. And I wanted to explore where those patterns come from. Then I got the idea, well, hey, wouldn't it be fun to take a design I saw from a book of 20th century Palestinian outfits and see if I can recreate it in a manner more appropriate to the Mamluk era, and specifically the end of the 13th and beginning of the 14th centuries. That led me down the rabbit hole of fabric, which led me to silk, which led me to more things in the background of my own family. And so it's been all about the exploration of how garments were constructed, how they were embellished, the reuse of fabrics and evidence for that. And so it's all about trying to recreate one dress that I have in my mind. And I'm almost ready to start it. I've almost got enough skills to have the confidence to cut in a full-length piece of handmade silk.
And that's always scary.
It's scary. I cannot make a mistake because I will never get another full loom length of handmade Indian silk again.
That is all the fears that we have as people working with materials like that.
Yeah, and it's been absolutely fun. People have been really interested, and thank you everybody for coming to join us.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And it's the Jezda Taranova again. It's not available for us at the moment, but we get to look at the amazing stuff on their table. So I wanted to point out a few really neat things that have been put on this table because a thing that Isoude has chosen to do that is wonderful is to bring us in progress pieces as well as pieces where, you know, you can compare between early skills and later skills. So, for example, over here, we have one of the first bracelets that Isoude has made, and then we have a much more recent piece where we've got more consistent work, better shape, and the wonderfully inconsistent stamping that is so typical of early medieval pieces like this. The other thing that's really cool is that they're working primarily with, or at least largely with, recycled metals, and I think that is fantastic too. It's a really good, sustainable way to engage in our hobby that doesn't break the pocketbook either. They said to me one of their favorite pieces is this, which currently is on, I'm not 100% sure, a chunk of leather for the moment, but it's also on a pair of brooches that Isoude wears, and it just looks really fabulous. It is this kind of wonderful blend between medieval aesthetic and modern aesthetic that just makes for a really nice bit of metalworking. They also talked about being a metalworker and wanting tools to try other hobbies, because as you might have noticed from the other end of the table, Isoude does do textile stuff, and so to facilitate some of that textile stuff, they have been making their own mill bending needles. Find the camera, haha, and started experimenting with oh my goodness, I am now blanked on what the word is for it, but it's a thing you use to make cordage, and somebody will say it in the comments, I know. The final piece I'm going to point out, once I move my own cup out of the way, is that this is the very beginnings of a set of spurs that are strongly inspired by medieval ones and potentially going to change the look of what some people are wearing on their feet these days. A lot of really cool stuff on the table, and yeah, you should be here. There's cool stuff to see. Natasha Taranova again. This time I'm bringing you Mary Ostler, who is doing some really cool hands-on work right in front of us now. Mary, can you tell us what you're up to?
I am making a decorative reed screen. They're common, very decorative in the 1800s, 1900s up to current in most of Central Asia. In period, not as much evidence of them. All I've been able to find to document is stripes, solid stripes. So I found one image that had blue and red stripes, and I decided I kind of liked that, and proceeded to buy wool roving, dyed it with indigo for the blue, and then for the red is madder and overdyed with black, as it was just too orange for the original madder. I'm not really a natural dyer, so there's probably like pH levels and alkaline things that I don't know. So dyed up all the wool, and then spent far too long spinning the wool roving onto each individual reed. And now I'm at the quick point where you can just warp them up quite quickly. So I had 160 reeds warped up and ready to go for today, and I have 62 left. So it goes pretty quick once they're done.
And then what do you do with the mats? Are they typically on the back of your gur, or?
For decorative ones, they're almost always interior of a yurt. For plain reed, which is much more common, they were often used on the exteriors, but they didn't have the wool roving on it. They did sometimes use the warps and use them in a different fashion. Instead of straight, they would make them Miranda, and so you could have braid work on it, but it goes a lot faster if you're not mucking around with dyeing wool and all that. Most Middle Eastern, Central Asian, African had reed screens, often used for felting. I have a sample below that I started for the felting, and it's the exact same thing what I'm doing now, it just doesn't have the decorative wool on it. it's not what I would say extreme skill. Like anyone in theory could do a plain reed screen. It's not a extremely technical thing, but it is a patience thing of just doing the same thing over and over again until you get the product you want.
I was going to say, it looks very meditative almost.
Kind of is.
And it copes well with distraction because it's easy to figure out where you stopped and where you continue.
Well, you just see if the threads are over. I'm weaving in the same pattern every single time, so I'm doing a Z pattern. I found out, I did a lot of research after I started this project, and most of the ones that I can find evidence of that list it, they're almost always S woven. So I'm actually weaving it in the wrong direction kind of thing. Not that only I would know.
Fair enough.
But like I started doing the averages on museum pieces, how wide they are compared to how many warp threads they have. And I discovered that the average is 9 centimeters, so roughly 3.5 inches. So these spaces are way too wide. It's closer to the ones I have on the edge. That's 3 inches, so that would be far closer to what a normal warp would be, whereas this is very unusually large.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
It is meditative to watch, too. Spoon! This is Malie Rennick. Malie is at Salon Artificum, and we're going to talk to her now.
Cool. Hi, friends. So I am Malie Rennick of Lions Gate. I am a basket weaver and a spoon carver by hobby and inclination. I've been basket weaving since I was about 7 years old, so coming up on 40 years now. My mother taught me how to make Irish-style Appalachian egg baskets, or also known as buttocks baskets, and it kindled a love that continues today. I grow my own willow, although the beavers have recently eaten it, which I'm mad about. So I'm on pause now until my new willow copse regrows, but this is my first attempt at willow woven basketry. I learned a ton. It could be considered a basket failure, quote, but I love it because I learned so much from it, and if you don't fail, you can't learn. So the other thing I picked up while I've been waiting for my willow to grow is spoon carving. It's a nice thing for my hands to be able to do when I'm just sitting somewhere and it doesn't matter if chips are flying. And it's something I've discovered I really have a joy and a passion about, especially the research of it, because you can make your own spoons and they're lovely, but then you can find extant examples and copy them and give them to your Laurel because she's awesome. And that's a lot of fun too. So I'm really enjoying the research aspect of things right now. And yeah, it me.
So this is the part where I get to ask you questions.
Cool.
When are you going to make me another spoon?
Soon. I have a plan.
Awesome. I
have a
wasn't
plan.
actually expecting that one.
Sometime this summer.
Cool. Other than the beavers eating your weaving,
Yes.
or your willows rather, is there anything that you find particularly challenging around your passion projects?
Time. Because if I'm using brown willow with the bark on, it is per foot of willow you need a day of soaking. So a 7-foot piece of willow needs a whole week to soak before it's pliable to make a basket. And even then, it may not necessarily be as pliable as you want it to be. So finding the time and blocking out the time to actually do the thing I find is difficult. And my other big consideration is the space. I have a workroom I could do it in, but you need a lot of water, and it's a very messy process. So it's summer months. It's hard to do basketry in the winter time unless I'm doing rattan in the tub, which is fine. Now I think the next time I harvest willow, if I pull the bark off of it, the soaking time is much less. It's 3 hours, not 3 days. And then I'll use the bark to make cordage, because that's another thing I'm thinking about right now. And then that may mean that both the time and the space challenges reduce. But I haven't been able to do that yet, because I don't have any willow because of the beavers. and it's illegal to trap them in these.
Yeah. There's so many things we could do with beavers, but let's not go there.
No.
Walking away now. I was thinking about fur and stuff, and then I'm like, oh wait, I can't say stuff about hunting them.
Oh wait,
You're not
apprentice
still
is
recording.
filthy.
Totally still recording, aren't you?
I'm the bad apprentice.
Nirgui behind the camera with Allegra of Lions Gate. Allegra is relatively new to the SCA. How long have you been in the SCA?
I joined last June.
Last June.
8 months? 9 months? 10 months?
And look at the spread of things that she's been working on. You want to tell me a little bit about the things you've been working on and things you're proud of?
Absolutely. So I'll start with the kirtle. I've been trying to draft a medieval kirtle, and what's been very interesting about that is the way I've been learning how the dress evolves from 1300s to the 1400s. So for example, this dress is a earlier period dress, so it should be about 1350, so to speak. It's laces down, all the rest. And what was really interesting to me is how the design, the shape of it was evolving over time. So this one, it would be about 1410s, just a little bit later, and you get the sleeve, which starts as a back seam. You flip the sleeve around to the front, and all of a sudden, you get this lovely, flowing, split sleeve draped effect, which is really, really fun and doesn't get in the way at all, because it splits right above the elbow. Then moving to about 1450s, you're getting into the houppelande, where it's and again, this same kirtle, the exact same type of dress like how I'm wearing, comes underneath as a supportive garment, but also expands and becomes the overdress at the same time. I hope any of that was accurate. That's fun. I would love to show you the armor that I've been working on. This is my leather armor. I drafted the pattern, I did all the tooling. I can see some of the other bits and pieces. It's all painted up. And the thing I am most excited about for this armor piece is that it was actually drafted based off of this corset pattern that I had made previously. So what really works well with the corset pattern is that when it comes up, it comes right to that small point of my waist, so I can bend very effectively in a full range of motion. So for fitting to a female body, it can be a little bit difficult to get a pattern that fits effectively. So I drafted and expanded this, made it a little bit bigger because leather doesn't flex as much as fabric would, and this became this bodice piece. So this became towards like a 1st century Roman. I liked Roman for this design because the Romans were one of the few that actually were using more leather in their armor, and it sort of expanded from there.
And this isn't just a pretty art project, it's your regular armor for heavy fighting.
This is my regular armor for heavy fighting. I've got some bits that are court armor, because the Romans would wear their pretty armor to court and to state functions. So this has been dressed up as court armor, which means it's not legal for fighting in. This helmet, for example, I don't want to get hit in the face with it. But in period, what they would do, these cheek flaps would be so designed so that if you had something coming at you, you would tilt your head a little bit and it would deflect off your cheek. So it was still functional, just not for what our purposes are. They would have also carried these three swords on them. One would be their main sword, their main weapon. And they would have had a mid-length sword, just a little bit bigger than what I've got, as their secondary stabby dagger. And a small utility knife, which would be for carving vegetables and trimming things. Hold it, and you can get some good motion and dexterity on there. I also made the shoulders with the help of Vic. And just to accompany the Roman aesthetic is this Roman replica pot that I made out of clay. It is a coil pot, and it was just quite fun to make. I don't have any more feedback on that.
What's on the horizon for things you want to make?
Presently, I want to finish this 1400s dress, which is just putting in more lacing, picking out better finishings. And once this is complete, I'm working on a plie based off of the Lady Macbeth England dress, but styled in as historically accurate 12th century Norman as possible.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. And it's Nadeja Taranova again at Salon Artificum. And this time I'm going to introduce you to Millicent of Eaglescliff. Millicent has brought some really awesome stuff out for us today. It's yours. Go.
So I like to make 12th century clothing of a style that most of Europe was wearing during that century. I like to make things fancy and shiny. This is like your ball gown level of outfit for a lot of the stuff I like to make. I like to use silk, which is itself shiny, and pearls and metal, and so I like that sort of detail. I also enjoy that ruffled cuffs are indeed period for the 12th century. I like finding textile details from 12th century artwork and bringing them to life. So wool and linen are common, like everyday life fabrics, and so I like to wear just a fancy lady on a normal day kind of clothing. There's no metal on this outfit, but when it's time to get dressed up, you put on the shiny things. So this is a trapunto quilted outfit because we see a lot of artwork. We see ridges on cuffs and ridges on necklines, and so quilting is a fairly plausible way to achieve that. So this is a style of quilting where you sew the fabric, two layers of fabric together beforehand, and then stuff it after the fact by threading yarn onto a blunt needle, and you just feed it through the fabric from the backside.
Wow.
So that was stuffed with yarn that I bought from Value Village.
Did you make your own button too?
I did.
That's a fabulous little button. That is sturdy.
I like making my own sort of textile accessories, so I made the button. I also like making cord, so I buy weaving yarn. This is from the Silk Weaving Studio. It's meant for making fabric, but I braid it into lacing cord. And so when you're lacing up garments, another thing that I found out that was done in the 12th century was you can do eyelets, but you can also use cord for your lacing. So you just make a cord, lay it along the edge of your garment, tack it down at regular intervals, and that functions as an eyelet. So if you don't like making eyelets, you can just get cord and tack it down, and that's what this statue lady has. So another decorative element that we see is enamel. So I bought all of this metal. All of the hardware I bought from jewelry supply stores, but enamel decorations in formats that you can sew onto clothing is definitely a thing that was done in the 12th century. So yeah, I like beautiful silk fabrics that are like multicolored and have a lot of texture woven into them. And yeah, that's what I like to do.
So, I have to ask, just with all of the gorgeous decoration that you're doing, what's the heaviest piece of clothing that you have made? Anything that makes you kind of go, when you put it on?
The weight is fairly evenly distributed because like the neckline is the most common like heavy thing, and that just kind of, your neck and your shoulders like carry the weight of all your clothing anyway. And then if there's trim on the hem, but that weight is carried by your hips. And so I don't find any of it particularly heavy. So this one is definitely on the heavier side because I have the neck, I have the cuffs, I have the hem. but I don't find it all that heavy. But again, I'm not beating like solidly like this. I'm just doing like regular intervals. So there is some weight to it, but the way that where people put their weight on their clothing, it's kind of like, it's like carrying a backpack. If the weight is distributed on different parts of your body, it's not that hard to carry the weight.
Do you have a piece of clothing you've made for yourself that when you put it on, you're like, now I'm medieval. This is the thing that makes me medieval.
Yeah. So what I've started doing that gives me that feeling is copying specific outfits from a manuscript. So this is Empress Matilda, and what I did with the dress that's in these pictures is I copied as many of the details of, like, there's dots on her neckline. I put the dotted part on my neckline. She has narrow, tight cuff trim. I did that too. So when I copy the entirety of the outfit, I know that it's not just, okay, I understand the layering and I kind of understand the aesthetic. This is an outfit that a person wore. And so that's what makes me feel medieval when I put it on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Millicent. I've really appreciated your time today, and I hope you have some great conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's Natasha Taranova again, and this time I'm with Nikolai Andreiov. Master Nikolai,
yes.
Would you care to tell us about what you've brought out today?
Well, I've got a whole collection of instruments that I've been collecting since somewhere around AS 12, something like that. Started with recorders, and then it sort of grew from there. Some of them are donations that have been acquired along the way. People sort of said, you're interested in music? Here, you can have this. I don't want it anymore. It looks medieval. I go, oh, yeah. You know, at this end of the table, I'm starting with brass instruments, horns you blow into like a horn. This is one of the donations. It started its life as a modern trumpet. Somebody removed the valves and went, yeah, I'm interested in medieval music. I'm not doing it anymore. Are you? Yes. So I gave it a good home. This is a folded trumpet. This is a straight one that hasn't been folded. We have crumb horns, which are a double reed instrument. And we have cornemuses, which are a straight one. Again, double reed. The reeds are in there. These were used from 1475 to 1625. Primarily in Germany and northern Italy. We have here a set of recorders based on a set that's dated to 1550. Various percussion. We've got oboron nakers, which were brought back from the Crusades. A dumbek, again, it's an Arabic instrument. A tambourine or a timbrel. A Jew's harp. Again, it's been dug up and dated, period. And then we start getting into Mistress Cushag's instruments. We have a rebec, great-grandfather to the modern violins. This one's 3 strings, gut. A tenor recorder. This is a bowed psaltery. It is a 20th century instrument, believe it or not. The period ones would be plucked psalteries of various shapes. That's pretty much what I've got here today. I've got a few more instruments at home.
Out of what you've brought today, what would you say has been the hardest instrument to pick up and learn how to play?
I'm not a brass player.
Fair enough.
But the recorders, the crumb horns, the cornemuse, the shawm, I've played them all. Percussion, is easy. The brass, I don't have the really good lips for a brass instrument.
Fair enough.
But there are people like Theodora von Zeeland, who is a professional brass player. She can get lots of noises out of them.
Excellent, awesome. And then do you have one that you think produces the richest or most beautiful sound of what you've brought out? I know I'm asking you to pick a favorite. That's never fair.
I tend to play the bass instruments because I've got the reach to make them go. Other people in Collegium don't have the finger spreads necessarily to make them work. The instruments we play most often are the recorders, and they are built to play as a consort, a group of recorders. They're not modern recorders. This is a modern recorder, small bore. This is a period soprano recorder, wide bore. It carries better, it has different overtone series, and these lock together, and people have described our sound with recorders as a wall of sound, which I thought was a very interesting description.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're going to leave you to hopefully play some music at some point and at least talk to a few more people.
I'll talk to lots of people.
Excellent. And we're going to wander off and find some more people to talk to.
Okay.
Neargwe behind the camera here with Rosalind McAllistair. How you doing, Rosalind?
I'm good.
Would you like to show me some of the things that you have been working on lately, or whatever's got your attention?
Sure. Well, most of my projects here are embroidery projects. Unfortunately, I give away most of my embroidery projects, so I don't have that many of them physically here. I have a lot of photographs of pieces I've made for other people. But I have this bee shift that I made right here.
And what's the significance of the bees?
The bees are part of my personal heraldry, and so I put them on the shift. And then the petticoat there is embroidered with rainbows, which I made for the FAFO project, based on a period hat embroidery. And this is my pocket, which I blackworked. It holds 3 beers. And this is some bobbin lace that I've been working on, and a bobbin lace partlet, which is all made out of bobbin lace that I made. And these are my embroidered gloves, which were a Principality ES competition entry a few years ago.
Now I've got an
Of the pieces that you have on the table here,
yes,
which one do you love? You have to pick a favorite.
The gloves.
Tell me more about the gloves.
The gloves are based on late 16th century gloves. I made the bobbin lace on them. I made the gold pearl, which is the wire coils, and it's all hand embroidered. The symbols of plants and animals in it are all representative of people in my life. So my husband's the birds, and the cat is my child, and other friends, and I just love them. They're very fancy. I don't really wear them, but I love them.
What do you have on your docket coming up that you can share?
That I can share?
That really piques your interest?
Well, my biggest project is my embroidered linen jacket, which I am about halfway through the process of, in that I have woven the linen, some of which I grew in my yard. So I planted the flax. You helped me build the tools to process the flax, and I spun it and I've woven it. It's not a great weaving job, but I'm going to redeem it, I think, with the embroidery, and it'll be pretty impressive when it's done. But I don't have anything to show for it right now because it's still very much in process. All my other projects are like kind of surprises for other people. There's a couple of elevations coming up that I have been honored to be asked to make the mantles or the costumes or both for the period elevations, but they will have to be released after the elevations happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Isoude Drakkar here again at Salon Artificum. This time I'm introducing you to Sine Gunnsdottir, who has brought out some really gorgeous stuff for us to take a look at. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for approaching. The love of embroidery sent me down a rabbit hole before COVID, and I started researching into a new persona. When I got into the persona, I discovered, because it was involved around the Silk Road, the Valley of Kashmir in northern India. And that was a rabbit hole, because the Kashmiri embroiderers to this day have an incredible art. So I started looking at how they did things, and that's why I've brought the wall hanging. This is the first time it's come out, and it took me 16 months of being trapped in COVID to do this. They have specific forms of embroidery for different things. If they start with chain stitch, the whole piece has to be done in chain stitch. If they start with satin stitch, the whole piece has to be in satin stitch. I chose the chain stitch. In the Kashmiri world, it would be called Ari, A-A-R-I. Their form of doing the chain stitch is different than what we do. It's done on the surface, and it's much easier, and it's really, you'll never ever go back to regular chain stitch once you've done their type. It's mostly done by men. The women choose the colors and the flosses. Their skills have been going on this kind of work since around 1100, and it's brought me a great deal of joy to learn it, even the way they sit and how they embroider. And so I'm very honored and happy to bring this work and encourage anybody. And if there is anyone at all who wants to know things about embroidery, please contact me. I'd be delighted to help.
This is absolutely stunning work. I mean, each of these stitches is so tiny and so consistent. I mean, that is just gorgeous. Wow.
This is all done with needle, my needle, not the, we call it tambour, they call it Ari.
Right.
The hook. The men use them now. Mm-hmm. However, it all started by needle only.
Wow.
And because I didn't know how to do that when I started this, I did it all by needle.
It is just mind-blowing.
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible.
It's very, very heavy. If you'd like to see the back, I've unpicked that corner so you can see how the little stitches are.
Look at that. Wow.
And if anybody wants to learn a chain stitch that is so much faster, so much more even, come and find me. You'll never go back.
That is just truly, truly stunning work. I'm looking for questions, but I'm too busy being flabbergasted by how amazing it is. Wow.
And of course, I've got to bring a few other things.
Yeah, and I mean, those are incredible too. I started out looking over there because I actually, honestly, didn't realize that this had been handmade. And so I was like, oh wow, look at how beautiful the Bayeux tapestry stuff is, and the stitches on that are really tiny and even and beautiful, and it's so like consistent. And then you say that you did this entirely by hand, and I'm still kind of reeling from it. That is truly, truly incredible work.
It kept me from going COVID crazy.
You sure it's not a result of going COVID crazy?
No, my daughters locked me up. I was trapped for 16 months, at week-longs, and so they didn't want me out. And so I didn't have a car, so I couldn't take myself for drives. So I stayed home and did this so that I could not feel like I was all alone.
Yeah.
So I learned to sit how they sit and stitch, because it's quite different. I had to learn all the different new types of stitches, and then I just started working. And anybody can do it. It takes a bit of patience to do a big project, but in all honesty, it's not hard. It's not, it's lovely.
It's just stunning. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Wow. Yeah. It's the Judge Saranova at Salon Artificum again. And now I'm going to introduce you to Elspeth Selwode, who has come with a whole bunch of really amazing needlework to show us. So, Elspeth, can I turn the floor over to you to talk about some of your amazing work? The detail is incredible.
Well, thank you. This is my ADHD on display. So I am a process junkie. I like to start projects. I have decided to commit myself this year to finishing projects. 2025 is the year of follow-through.
Excellent.
And so I'm finishing this satchel for my son. I am finishing these needle books for largesse. I'm finishing the hat for my daughter. And I'm also chairing the Thierry Archival Banner Project. And we are hoping to be able to present it in November. So hopefully there will be 84 of these little guys.
Wow.
On display. And we are trying to keep current with it now.
Excellent.
But my hyper focus these days is blackwork. I love the elegant simplicity of it. It speaks to me, it makes my heart happy. And like this piece here, this is 15 years old. And it's been in use every day, and honestly, it looks like it's still new.
It does. That is gorgeous.
My recipient said, I'll take the needles
tiny.
out so that you don't get poked when you pick it up. That is 32 stitches per inch, single strand of silk over one thread.
Wow.
And I was not insane enough to do that on the back, so that's over 2 threads. So that's 16 stitches per inch. But I wanted to kind of experiment with some color, and I wanted to work with the design that I designed. So this is my own design here. And I made some modifications here and over there, just to accommodate the size of fabric that I have left over.
Right.
And I just wanted to get some stuff done and put into largesse coffers.
Those are gorgeous.
Thank you.
Just the attention to detail with each individual stitch. I mean, yeah. How are your eyes holding up with all of that?
Well, I wear bifocals now. And that's for a reason.
Yeah. Excellent. So this is your current passion?
This is my current passion.
Where did you start with needlework? What was the thing that drew you into it?
When I started in the SCA, I knew how to cross stitch.
Me too.
My mom had taught me some basics of surface embroidery, but I found that once I got into our current Middle Ages, I really embraced things like split stitch, especially. This one really makes me happy. I love the movement of the stitches, the movement of the hip. I was cackling when I was embroidering this because it was just coming along so beautifully. The shape of the face and then the movement of the arm, it comes alive. And it's really like painting with thread. And that was what Opus Anglicanum was all about. It was all about painting with thread.
Right.
And the life that you get from a piece like that, it's amazing what thread and needle can do.
Absolutely.
So that has captured me as well. And I'm giving equal visitation to both of these disciplines. And also delving into knitting. Because, ADHD.
Exactly. I do know ADHD very well. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm loving these, and I'm like, I need to,
Well, they are going into largesse coffers, so maybe if you do something nifty, the Royals will see fit to pass one your way.
I'll need to do something nifty.
That's not hard for you.
Thank you so much, Elspeth.
Thank you.
Nirgui behind the camera here with Eidana of Rumm, looking at a lot of Mongolian work. So close to my heart. Eidana has spent a lot of time working on learning how to do translations into the classical Mongolian script. And so this story here, The Fool in the Sandalwood, you can see that she has gone and found the correct modern-ish spelling and then has converted it into the proper classical Mongolian script, which is amazing. Absolutely beautiful. She's been studying the characters and the pronunciation, the writing rules. There have been bits and pieces of translations that she's done and scrolls that have been completed with her work, and it's just fabulous. Just fabulous. And on the other hand, she's also been working with the Mongolian horsehead fiddle, the Morinkhor, and learning about the evolution of the instrument and the differentiation between the older style eagle and the new Morinkhor, the modern Morinkhor, and she's also learning how to play it. So, without further ado.
Yes, that can happen, especially if it's a night like that where you've got it. A lot of times I don't even have to. So this one here is really good.
And that's a Buryat folk song. Just wonderful. Thank you.
It's Natasha Taranova again, and this time I am bringing you Sir Cyneric. Cyneric has brought some really fun toys with him, and I'm going to knock it down because I'm terrible that way. Now you get to talk about it all.
Welcome to War and Peace. One thing to build the castle, one thing to knock it down. But I'll primarily talk about the treadwheel cranes. They were started in Rome. We lost, they stopped building them in the early Middle Ages, possibly because they didn't need them, possibly because they lost the knowledge. And in the 12th century, they started using it again. As you can see, it works. This would have held 1 or 2 people, which could lift 3,000 pounds each person. It's, I'll keep going.
Do it again.
This wheel would have been 15-foot diameter, and it's roughly based on the one in the rafters of Canterbury Cathedral.
So, you're saying it could hold a couple of people to make the whole thing move?
Correct. It mostly would have been one person, but if you had a heavier load, you would put 2 people side by side.
I'm just trying to think about the logistics. So once this kind of thing is built, it stays in place, or can it be dismantled and moved somewhere else?
It would have started at the bottom of the castle or the cathedral, and then once the walls and the roof rafters were in, it would be moved up. And if there was a second level, more walls and more roof rafters, and it would be all taken apart and moved up. And then eventually it's up in the rafters of the cathedral where it stays to this day.
That's phenomenal. And you got to see a couple of these while you were traveling around?
We got to see one in Mont Saint-Michel.
Right.
And it was incredible. If you ever get a chance, please go.
I'd love to.
And it probably got more use than others because it was used to bring up supplies for the abbey.
Right.
So.
Excellent. You ever gonna scale one up?
I never say never. But not for a while. How's that?
All right. And then, since we've got a little bit of time, why don't you tell me about my favorite new toy?
So this is my battering ram. In real life, it would have been 20 feet long and held 16 people inside. And weighed, I figure, around 10 tons.
Wow.
But if you had 16 people inside and probably 4 at the back helping to push, that's only a half a ton a person. And a car is about a, oops.
Bad castle building.
Bad castle building, yes. A car is about a ton and a half, so 20 people is a half a ton each. That's not so bad. So,
it's like Jenga right now.
It is. Wanna knock it down again?
Yeah.
Take the cover off.
Oh, can we pull the cover off?
We can. Yeah. It's a little delicate, but it will come off. Helps if I'm not eating stuff on it.
Oh, the whole thing comes up.
Yeah.
Where are we supposed? Okay.
Past
there. Here we go. And these are where all our little people would be
Holding on.
holding on.
For dear life and smashing into the wall. So let's see it.
Mayhem, destruction.
The wheels work fairly well, somewhat.
Glad I didn't knock my cup over at the end of the
Yes. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's fabulous.
Neargui behind the camera with Angharad verch Kenneth and her amazing leather work. What do you have with you today here?
Well, I have some examples of things that I've done. This is a bracer that I made for the Order of the Grey Goose Shaft. It ended up being given to me, which is okay. I make pouches sometimes. And this is an Ottoman Turkish quiver that I entered for ANS 2 years ago.
There's a piece that you're working on right now.
Oh, I was doing a demonstration and the picture just seemed to fit, so I might be doing a bracer for a prize somewhere.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
It can depend on, sometimes people ask me about something and it just kind of comes. A lot of image searches and see what's there. This was, there was an example from the Topkapi Museum, or a museum in Germany anyway. The extant sample was embroidered on thin leather. I don't have that kind of patience, so I drew it in. But this took me like a solid week of work.
Do you have any fun projects in the works?
Nothing I can talk about.
Nothing you can talk about. Tell me more about this pouch then.
I needed a pouch and I didn't want to have somebody else's pattern, so I was developing one. This part is a little too long, so I modified it and I'll make more of them. But it's just 3 stamps, a border, the little rope, and that I kind of drew it in. But and we have the hardware at work, so it's not quite period, but it kind of looks like it could be.
It's definitely got that period aesthetic to it.
Oh yeah, no, it's flashy.
Thank you very much.
And it's Natasha Taranova once again. This time I'm introducing you to Taliesen at Hafgan, who has brought out a variety of stuff for us, mostly associated with pigments from my first glance around, but I will let him tell you more of what it is he's got on display.
So I have ink making, which is something that I've done almost from when I first joined the SCA. We made our first black walnut ink in 2002 or 2003, and I still have some of that ink. And then these are lake pigments, which I got into because my partner Topher, whom many people know and remember, was into fiber arts. So when he got into natural dyes, it was a simple matter for me to take a dye bath and convert it into lake pigments. So 2 kinds of ink. You've got oak gall ink, 2 different kinds of oak gall, because you've got the North American, which are often called oak apples because of the size, and then the European ones, which are little tiny ones. And literally, they are this, just denser. They're literally the same amount, the same thing. And then black walnuts. And black walnuts are considered an ornamental, not eating, although people do eat black walnut inks. So oak gall ink you can make within 24 hours. Black walnut can take upwards of 9 months to make, because you harvest in the fall, ferment it over the winter, and then you process it in the spring, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks, depending on your patient, to make these. Oak gall ink, you literally can crush these, steep them overnight, strain them, add the powdered gum arabic, add the iron sulfate, and have ink to use. And Gala, who's from Lionsdale, was presented, because I used to give, when you had this Super 6 largesse competition, I would put in 6 sets of ink as part of my largesse. And Gala got a set of them, and so she actually produced a scroll, which she used my oak gall ink for. And when she posted it, she said, "I want you all to see this because it's so awesome. But she said, I have to admit, when I first wrote with it, I was so disappointed because it wasn't black, it came out as a dark gray. And in frustration, I walked away because they tell you to walk away. And she came back 20 minutes later and she said, this is what I got. And she posted the picture. So it became part of my ink making documentation. And someone actually used it, posted fantastic pictures of mine. So this is raw cochineal. This is what the little bugs look like. If you want to get a close-up of that. Little miserable little one. Woad is a plant, so they're just big green leaves. Weld is made from the stems of the plant. And madder is made from the roots. So there's madder root. And so different ways. Lake pigments are anything above ground as opposed to earth pigments, like made from place and stuff like that. And it was just a natural progression. So you add calcium carbonate to the dye bath. The calcium draws all of the colored pigment out of the water and it sinks to the bottom. So you end up putting it in a sterilized container and you can see on the side how much water was in there. And you just let it evaporate, literally evaporate. And that's all the pigment I got out of 3 or 4 ounces of suspended weld slurry. So not a lot, which explains why pigments in some cases can be incredibly expensive. You get a lot more out of cochineal, as you can see from the thickness of the pieces. You grind it, and then you grind it again, and I think it was Cyneric that said, and then when you think you've ground it enough, you go back and you do it again. So these are all double ground pigments. This is a pigment, not a paint. It doesn't become a paint until you take equal parts of pigment with equal parts of ground gum arabic, dried gum arabic, and mix them together using the Muller on a... I don't have a marble slab because they were going to cost me $150 to get one that big, which I wasn't going to do. So that's why I have a glazed ceramic tile. So then when you've blended them and then the gum arabic has infused itself into the pigment, now you have the basis of a paint. You add linseed oil if you want an oil paint. You add boiled water. I use distilled water now, but in here they would have used oil. You don't want any of the chemicals in it because, as we know from dyeing, iron, for example, will dull a color down and stuff. So in period, they often collected rainwater before it hit the ground, so they get the purest water that nature supplies. So yeah, as I said, linseed oil gives you oil paint, clear, clean water gives you watercolor, and if you add, make a yolk tempera and add that pigment with gum arabic to that, then you have a tempera, which was used for painting wall murals.
Fantastic.
And that's it in a nutshell.
Excellent. And a walnut shell? That's it in a walnut shell.
Okay, fair enough. I will go with that. I'll remember that next time.
I was going to ask you, the spark that you've got on your sleeve, does that use your pigments here? No. It's a fabulous bit of art.
Yes, that one's there because that's one that I painted.
It is lovely.
And it wasn't used because I think I was late getting it. Like
that happens.
It was done at the end.
Yep.
So I thought, oh, okay, I forgot to dust them.
That's all right. We're all a little dusty these days.
So this is a period example, and then this is one of my favorite modern examples. This is Unseal, which is from the 3rd, 4th century, but it's tumbling box, which is a quilting pattern, but I wrote that.
That's fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your
You're
time.
welcome.
I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and that you get plenty of good questions coming to your way today. Thank you. Oh.
That's awesome.
Now we're taking a look at the stuff by Morweena Brenwick, which means Morweena with the curly red hair, something like that. She'll fix it later. She is showing us a whole bunch of really fantastic weaving stuff. We've got tablet weaving pieces, we've got fabric, we've got all sorts of really cool stuff on display. Morweena, what would you say is your favorite type of weaving to do?
You know, I gotta say it's plain weave, which is the sample on the end, the check, which is just simple 1 over, 1 under weaving, because you can do so many things with it. You can do the patterning by using different colors, by alternating dark and light threads. So my hand's gonna go in. By making the fabric tighter and looser in one fabric, you can make just the most amazing things, and it's just simple plain weave. I do a lot of twill, mostly because people ask me for it.
And your twill is like what we're seeing over here with the for example.
Yes.
That'll be, is that a broken herringbone?
Right, this is broken diamond twill. These are done with the same threading. You just use a different treadling sequence to get the different patterns to come out.
Excellent.
You see a lot of this in earlier period stuff. Mostly, though, it would have been tone on tone, not contrasting colors like this. This is more an SCA-ism. We like it. It's pretty. It's striking. In the SCA period, like this sample of wool right here, which is from an example from the 4th century in Rome. This is a broken diamond twill, like this one, but you can't see the other color because it's tone on tone.
May I pick it up?
Absolutely. And this piece, what you get when you process this wool, you get little pockets of air held in the texture of the fabric, which would have made it insulated. And this postulation is that is why they use these broken patterns, was to increase the wearability and make it warmer.
I love how you can see the little squares of it forming in here, even though the pattern itself is a little bit hard to pick out.
That's why I've got this sample here. This is done exactly the same warp. I just used a madder dyed weft to bring the pattern out so you could see it.
That is fantastic.
And this is based on a sample that was found in Vindolana, which is one of the Roman forts in northern Britain. There's a lot of cloth samples from there, and this fabric's also been brushed, which makes it very, very soft. It would have been actually quite nice to wear.
It is. It feels decadent.
This is actually the same wool as this project here, but that one's much better because it's been brushed and this one has not.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time. These are really, really gorgeous pieces of work.
And everything on the table is touchable, but not stealable, Your Excellency.
All right, I'll put it back then. How could you tell?
I know you. You know me, yes.
Thank you. They're stunning. Absolutely stunning. Hey, I know this one. I happen to have it in gold and white.
Nearly behind the camera with Master James Wolfden.
Hi there. So right now I'm working on another one of my pawns here for some of the chess pieces that I'm working on here. So I've carved some chess pieces. Most of the stuff that I'm doing here are based on Persian designs of chess that have shown up in different areas, which are more of a abstract chess design, where you have different pieces, including the chariots, what we would call a knight, but with just sort of essentially the horse cavalry. And the game originates in India, where they also had elephant cavalry, and that eventually became a bishop in the European game on it there. This is a smaller set that I've done up, same sort of similar idea, some variations as far as the king. Here we have the king sort of shown by a crown because they couldn't show a person, whereas in another style they show it with a throne. So these have just been things that I've just been sitting here sort of carving away on. I'm just doing a pawn right now that I would be putting on there. The ones in red here have been painted with madder paint, which is what we do find on some of the remnants that there have been painted in the red style there. I have a larger set here. This is more of a later period style, though some of the aspects even would be outside of period because this became more of a standardized set on it there. So that's sort of what I've been doing as far as some of the gaming. The smaller sets are something that I'm looking at saying that could be a good size for largesse if I decided to make up a bunch of them for a Super 6 or something like that.
If I recall correctly, you have only been doing these chess pieces for a short period of time.
That's right. I started this chess set, I guess this one I started about a year ago, and that was because that was more out of period style. These ones I started off going into, and yeah, I haven't been doing a lot of whittling of this style, and it's a learning process. It's all learning about it. I sort of joke that I'm the not necessarily, I'm the shite craftsman. I'm not a great one, but I want to encourage everyone. It doesn't matter how good you are, just go and have fun. I'm having fun doing this. I'm not worrying if I'm the best at it. I'm just having fun doing it and learning as I go.
What else do you have on your table here?
What else do I have on my table? The other thing that I play with a lot is I do archery and throwing weapons. Now with throwing weapons, if I start looking at, when we throw knives in the SCA, we'll often go out and buy a commercially available throwing knife. And they're lovely, they throw great, but they don't often look very period. And one of the things I looked at and said, I like to do things in a period way. So shouldn't I have a knife that looks more period? So the first knife I came up with, if I wanted to try to create a throwing knife, I just created one out of mild steel. I didn't forge it. The thing about a throwing knife is if you get really good steel, chances are you're going to break it. So I just start with a mild steel, just something to make it look a little more period. As I was going on with something like that, one of the things I also realized is I have a lovely bullet stagger that I purchased that I said I would love to throw that, but on the other hand, it's kind of expensive and I'm sure I'm going to knock my balls off. So with that, I turned around and said, what if I made one? So I just grabbed a piece of scrap wood, again, mild steel, and created a dagger, and I've started throwing this in my throwing weapons. It's got my bullet shape on there, made a couple others like that so that I could pass them along and encourage other people to throw using a more period dagger on it there. Now as we get into throwing weapons, last year at Lions Gate Champion, where I had to hold the tournament, they had a Star Wars theme. And I said, what's throwing weapons? Well, a throwing weapon that the Society does, but we don't do too much in Antir, is the plumbata. And so I thought, you know what? If I did a 4-fletch plumbata, I've got an X-Wing fighter. So I have something that meets my Star Wars aspect of it, and I have something that is period as well. Now, we did an experiment with plumbatas pre-COVID in Antir, and they didn't quite work out, and there was a number of reasons for that. And when I looked, I said, if we were to ever start this up again, I'd want something that people could easily make their own plumbata. So I wanted to do something that was relatively simple on it there. So I didn't necessarily, again, look at doing a whole forging of an arrowhead, but what could an average person do? So here I have a relatively bit that someone can do for about $5. Wooden shaft, lead weight, a nail in there. Although, if you want to be fancy, you could use some other ways to make your arrowhead on it there. Now, the problem with any plumbata, they're not designed to last. You throw them and they're used. This is causing an issue, so I said, well, what would be a way? Now, the tape is designed to reinforce the shaft and also prevent any catastrophic failure, but it's still going to break. So I went and said, what about coming up with using a way to make it more of a socketed in there that would allow somebody to change it if they had. So here's one design, but I'm just also going to look at this one here, which this mirrors the same idea with one aspect, and I haven't put any glue in this right now just to show. When this shaft breaks, I could just swap it out and put in another shaft. So this would make it more usable should we bring throwing weapons and bring the plumbata into our throwing weapons and on tier. So I wanted to make something there that anyone else could do. So those are what I'm sort of looking at there for that side of it there. And then the other thing that I play with is making crossbows. So this one's using a fiberglass shaft in here, but working with the rolling nut in there to get a crossbow and a lashing up in there. Using a Delron, a plastic nut there. This one is an attempt to be a little bit more artistic. That one's a very functional one. This one is an attempt to be a bit more artistic on there. And the long-term plan is to put an actual yew wood prod on it. It doesn't have it there right now. I'm still working on that. horn nut, some inlays. Again, I'm not an artistic person, but I wanted to try it. I'm not good at it, but you want to try it. You want to play with it. I always say, doesn't matter how good you are, go and try it. Fail. We learn from our failures. We learn from what works too, but we learn from our failures. But I have a nut here. You can see it stops there right now. I pull the trigger and now it spins on it there. So that's the key thing that I have for functionality on it. I've made a number of longbows. I don't have any of them here right now. But what I will probably try to do, rather than put a metal prod on something like that I could have, is go with an actual U prod on one of these crossbows that I make up here. And so that's what this is being worked on and getting down into the shape of it. But that's still taking a bit of time to tell about it. So that's what I'm doing there. Sometimes these projects lead into side projects. And what I have down right here, when I was making the crossbow, I ended up making some with cheese glue. I ended up using a cheese glue, which is, in this case, mozzarella cheese and lime and water. So I made a cheese glue, but I said, what other glues are they? In Cyneric, I read about a leaf glue that I wondered, oh, what leaves do they use? They don't use leaves at all. It's hide glue. So this glue is made up from using rawhide shoes, dog toys, and I essentially boiled it down on it there, and then poured it into, made a jelly of it, cut it into slices like bread, and that's actually where the leaf comes from, because now I have small leaves that I can rehydrate at a later point to use as glue on it there. So did some experiments. Right now I'm just experimenting with it. I haven't actually used this glue as we're planning on using it on some other projects, but it was just all part of it because it's the rabbit holes you go down into as you're working on different projects. And that's what I've been working on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's all hope we can find rabbit holes as easily as you can.
They're always there. The rabbit holes are always there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's the Jeshta Taranova. Elspeth Farre is away from us for the moment, but I've got permission to talk through some of her stuff on the table, so I wanted to show you two of the really cool pieces that are out here. The one I'll start with is the piece that's super innocuous, and it's not a thing you would necessarily have picked up as being a work of art in and of itself. This was meant to be a shield boss. There was a sizing issue with it, but, correct me if I'm wrong here, it was raised rather than dished, which...
Cold raised, without heat.
So my understanding as a non-metal worker is that this is a particularly difficult technique to do, and it just looks spectacular to me. It is so well done. And rather than get rid of the piece that didn't work out the way that she intended, this has lived a long life and had many, many uses in its life as a water dish and food dish and all sorts of different things. But it was also the very beginning of making more. So learning from the things that didn't work the way you wanted them to work, and then moving on and developing those skills and doing new, cool things. Learned under the hands of a master metalworker, which is also pretty phenomenal. And then the next piece is incredible. It is this very long roll of arms for Lionsdale in its Eisenmark days during the pandemic, and it goes and goes, and we're just going to come a little bit your direction, keep showing the art that's on display here. And each one of these arms is hand done and presented. I'm going to draw your attention to this spot right here, where you might be able to make out that there was an accident with some ink. Now, if we come all the way back, there was another one here, and these have been so masterfully prepared that until it was pointed out, my eyes just kind of glazed right past them. But the reason was, again, learning from things going wrong. So Elspeth was making a book quite a while ago, and in the making of the book, there was an accident with the ink. And after getting through the trauma of, oh my god, I've ruined this thing that I have put so much time in, she learned how to fix the problem. So this page and this page are the same. This is with the spilled ink, and this is post-repair. And her repair work came from learning to make a white pigment that matched the paper. And I think that, again, mistakes happen. They happen all the time. Learning from them and learning how to adapt and being willing to show off that process, I think is really fantastic. And I'm really grateful to her for walking me through it.
Everybody loves their cats.
Yeah. Furry little birds. Oh, yeah. I'm in sensory overload. There's so many amazing things to look at. It's the Jeshta Taranova, and we are still at Salon Artificum. It has been quite the day. I think this might be our last talk of the day, and of course I have saved my apprentice, Hallveig Sigrúnardóttir, to be our final visitor. It's all yours, Hallveig.
Okay, yeah, so I have been exploring late period knits, 15th, 16th, 17th century from a few different places. I started with Tudor caps, and I've done maybe 5 or 6 of them at this point. I didn't follow anybody else's pattern. Here, I'll show you this. This is like a preemie size.
20-minute warning.
Cute! with a partial brim. And it has a little bit of self-lining in there. The brim is, I think on this one, actually knit in a separate piece. These ones are knit on. I didn't like the way that this one split in the brim. It didn't quite go, thank you. It didn't quite go as flat and around the ears as I wanted. Anyway, these were learning prototypes from scrap for this one, which is knit for Seamus of Skye, and you can see the ear flaps actually overlap on the ear here, which was done by knitting from the crown, or the, I don't know, top, whatever, increasing. You don't want to stack your increases, because if you do, then it shows on like a spiral zone, so you have to stagger them. Approximately 4 increases for every row, but as you move out, you want to space them, the rows out a bit and increase how many times you're, anyway. Anyway, I also picked up some stitches on the side here to make the brims increase as well as the hat, so that I didn't end up with this kind of result. This one has been fulled, but I wasn't pleased with the yarn because you can still see the stitch definition. And so I'm now working with a different yarn, and you can see the difference between stitch definition as knitted, as fulled. It's still not to the place where I would like. I'm hoping eventually to find a yarn where the stitch definition will disappear and I can raise it with a comb and trim it to look like velvet, but it takes time. I'm also working towards a 17th century knitted waistcoat. I've got some museum examples here, which are zoomed way in, and then followed by charts that I developed from trying to count the itty-bitty stitches. This one here will correspond with this sample, where I've tried out the charts. This one connects here. This one I think is from the next sweater over this bit here. And there's the chart for it where the X's are the contrast color and the O's are a purl stitch instead of a knit. Yeah, this is another sample of the sort of color work. This is at a gauge where it's about double what would be done from the museum examples. So I've had to order specialty needles like 000, whereas this is on a 0 needle.
So you're going to be working with pins, essentially.
Yeah, so they were called pins at the time, called knitting pins. And where was I going with that? They left some of the floats on the back, yeah, I know, but those ones aren't as exciting because I didn't develop those. Yeah, they left floats on the back. This one is another one that I was trying. And as you can see, some of the floats in the back are a bit unmanageable. I'm hoping that when I go down to the proper gauge, it will be a little easier to keep tension correct. That one corresponds with this sweater.
Knitted silk.
Yeah, and it does actually feel like you're knitting with thread rather than with yarn. So we think that they were knit sweatshop style, with the same artisan doing the right front of the same pattern over and over again. And then the wearer would purchase the set of 2 front panels, a back panel, and sleeves, and assemble them at home to fit their body, line it, add their own buttons or their own ribbons for closures. There's some examples of ones that have been gores put in at the side when the waistline changed. So fun. These are stockings knit from the Matthew Nagy's pattern from the Tudor Tailor. These ones are for Dometchu. He has quite a large calf, so I had to do a little bit of size finagling. They're knit from the top down, and there is a bit of a seam at the backs. And the heels are interesting, not how we would do a modern heel, in that we increase way above the ankle in a triangular shape, and then to make the heel, there's a little bit of decrease here, and then there's a seam along there. Right here, several stitches are seamed together. So this part here sits about the middle of your foot. It feels a little strange, but I seem to like it.
And these are a bigger needle. This is before you started working in the small.
Oh gosh, yes.
Gauge.
So this is a US 3 needle, so about 3 millimeters. And then this one would be, actually I can't remember whether it was a 2 or a 1, probably a 2. These are for Dame Morgaine, and it's the same clock pattern on the ankle there. But you can see it's a little bit tighter of a knit.
And you can see that they've been worn.
Yes, I'm actually delighted that they are worn. And then this is a 0.
And then you're going to
same
4 times 0 is what you're working towards.
I'm working towards. I've ordered the needles, but they're not here yet. Yeah.
Impressive.
Thank you.
Absolutely impressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Hallveig.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. I think we should probably let you pack up before you end up being the last person in the room.
Is it pack up time?
Apparently.
I'm a little bummed.
Hello. I just wanted to welcome up. You're editing this, right?
I am now. Nice and loud.